and welcome. Thanks for looking in and listening in to our first episode of 2021. Already loads going on, but look, we've got our first match of the season. Yes, it was supposed to be against Man City, but we could talk about that and have a little moan about that later. But our first match of the season now is against Spurs. So we've got Sian from the Proud Lillywhites. Sian, how you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Yes, looking forward to the game. How are you?
Yeah, great. Yeah, I mean, I think we're all a little bit busy. It's in a weird way, you know. I think we're kind of adapting to this way of life, and it is a little bit weird, you know. I mean, Zoe came in a little bit late. Yes, I'm going to out you that you was a little bit late coming to this today. And it said, should we admit? It said, oh, she's on her way. And I said to you, Sian, didn't I? Normally, what we're doing is looking at a front door, but no, we're not looking at a door. We're looking at a Zoom. But again, I'm going. I digress as usual. So listen, Zoe, how you doing?
Yeah, very well, Joe. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure, as always. Thank you for telling people that I'm late. I mean, it's not often that happens, but there we go. What can we say? Looking forward to the weekend.
So let's get straight into the questions. I mean, look, there's been lots of changes in both camps this year, right? So you've just had 2 successive wins, right? How happy are you with the season, Sian?
Well, I mean, I think we said at the beginning of the season, you know, when I was speaking to you before, it was going to be a really difficult start for us. The fixtures didn't fall well for us. You know, we had yourselves at the beginning of the season, and then we had a succession of top 4 teams pushing for the top 4, and it was always going to be really tricky. Then we had those 2 games, you know, where Bristol City game we should have done better, and I think everybody can acknowledge that we should have won that game, and the team that we are, we should have got 3 points, but we drew it, and Bristol City were obviously up for it on that occasion, and then, you know, those 2 games were games that we were always had down as, you know, games to win, where the season kind of really started for us in terms of those games that were winnable and were games that we wanted to push on. We drew with Reading, which was, you know, the club were disappointed with that. But if you look at the results last season, they beat us quite easily. So to draw with them was an improvement on last season. And had it not been for the context of games against the Manchester teams and Arsenal and Chelsea, it might have been a very different reaction from the club. So it was a hard first half of the season for us, and then we've had a game at the end of the first half of the season cancelled and a game at the beginning of the second half of the season cancelled. So it's been a long time since we've played, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, and, you know, a great opportunity for us now with those two wins in the bag to start pushing on. And realistically speaking, you know, we're in a good place.
Yeah, and you know, you got, is it Alana and Shalina, isn't it, that you've got to the end of the season at least anyway, that signed
Yes.
for you. So yeah, so that's bring like a wealth of experience to the squad as well, right? So that's a positive thing for you.
I mean, Shalina's been great at the back, you know, strong centre back, and also brilliant for our youngsters. She's got that experience that she talks to them the whole game. When I've been lucky enough to go to a couple of games on press passes and things, and she and Keris are at the back talking to the younger players all the time, telling them exactly what's going on, and that's great for their experience. Hopefully, you know, they'll stay even longer. And Alana, I think we're still to see the best from her. We've seen some great stuff, particularly against Arsenal, from her and things, but still more to come from her, I hope. And I think if we can, you know, keep them beyond the end of the season, it'd be fantastic. But even just having the season with their international experience and everything that they bring, and as I say, against some of the clubs we've got coming up, hopefully, you know, we can see even more from them.
Yeah, I mean, we've got, obviously, we just we knew Rachel Daly was going to go, Zoe, right? So that was kind of obviously expected. But now as well, we've had a huge boost with like Emily staying, and we've said before, Zoe, you know, she's a game player. She's every formation that I think in my head, she's in it. You know, she's amongst it. So I mean, Zoe, how do you think things are going with what we've got now? Obviously, with Rachel and Ruby going as well.
I think it's, we've touched on this before in previous episodes, haven't we? It's been a bit of a mixed bag, our season, really. You know, we had the game against Arsenal and, you know, we showed flashes, and then we just seemed to get stuck in a rut. And, you know, we turned things around really when Billy took charge, and the players seem to be playing with more freedom, being able to play in the positions that they wanted. Our back four was solid. But yeah, I mean, we all knew that Rachel Daly was going to go, and I think the fact that the NWSL has expanded the season for this year, it made sense. Houston want to retain that title, so you can't blame her. But yeah, Van Egmon's just a huge boost for us. I am gutted that Ruby's gone, because I felt that Ruby had done really well for us. But obviously, we're going to have our first game with our new manager, Ollie, on Sunday, and it's going to be really interesting. And while it was unfortunate that our game against Manchester City was cancelled, I actually prefer that the squad have had like at least another week and a half to get to know with how he wants them to play, how he's setting up tactically and what's expected from them. So I think that's a positive for us. So I'm hopeful about the next part of the season. It's a bit like Sian's alluded to with Tottenham, that thinking that you can push on now, and I think that's a similar thing for us. We have to try and push on.
Yeah, I mean, it's been great as well, having, like we say, like Rachel Daly and Alex Morgan. I mean, unfortunately, we only saw, I mean, because I love football, Sian, anyway, I just like watching magical people on the pitch, right? And Alex Morgan was one of them. Unfortunately, we only got a couple of glimpses of her, really. So will there anything that will will carry on from that, from Alex being in the team, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think in terms of the players, we've got a lot of young players. Having the opportunity to be on the training pitch, even with Alex Morgan, to learn from her how she pushes herself, how she thinks about the game, and the way in which she plays the game. Even for a short period of time, that's got to have some impact on the players. And from the reactions I've seen on social media and things from the players, they all got on with her and found her a really useful addition to the squad. I think in bigger terms, in terms of the reputation of Spurs women, it's done a great deal of good, mostly within the club, I would say. I think it means that the club as a whole now takes the women's team a bit more seriously. We've seen that the women have moved to Hotspur Way full time during Alex's time at the club. Whether that was anything to do with her or not is a point of interest, but we don't know. But ultimately, they have moved to Hotspur Way full time, which is brilliant. And you've seen pictures of her talking with Ledley King and Jose Mourinho. You've never seen them engaging with the women's team before. So just from that perspective, it's great. And hopefully it's drawn attention from the outside world as well, because for whatever reason, Spurs women have struggled to get audiences. I guess probably because you've got Chelsea and Arsenal, who have long histories in the women's game of being hugely successful. So they've taken up a lot of the audience that we might otherwise have had, and we do struggle with audiences. And the couple of games that we did have back at the Hive this season certainly were busier than I can remember the games being for most of the season last season. And some of that was certainly the Alex Morgan, the Alana Kennedy effect. So there has been a great deal of benefit, I think, even from a short stay. The chances of her staying, and there was the talk that she could have stayed till the end of the season, but given that her daughter is under a year old and her husband is still in America, it's not really very fair on him for her to be over here any longer than she had to be, really. So from a personal perspective, you completely understand why she only stayed for a short time. We would have loved to see her for longer. We were just starting to see the team kind of working around her and see what she could do. So it's a big shame in that respect, but I do think a lot of positives have come from her short stay with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I mean, as you say, Spurs took centre stage essentially because Alex Morgan was there for a short while. So yeah, so it is a positive thing. Hopefully, we might get that again next year. Have an influx of new peeps coming over. And look, so your new manager, I still say that it's new because it's still quite new. How do you think she's shaping up?
Good. I mean, I think it's an interesting choice by the club, the timing of replacing management. But I do think as fans, we were starting to be a little concerned by the previous managers and some of the decisions that they were making and the way that things were going. So we were keen to see what they could bring to the club. Rhiannon Skinner's got a great records. She's, got a great record with young people. She's worked with the youth systems with England and with Wales, and in America she's worked with their young people as well. So and we've got a lot of young players, but she's also got that experience now working with the England senior team. So she has got a great deal of experience, and I think that's a good thing. The way she talks about the game, if you listen to her in interviews and press conferences and things, she is much more modern in her approach, I think. And you talk about her talking about what we're doing off the ball and those kind of things. So I think that's really good to hear. I'm impressed so far in terms of that. In terms of the game results, I think it's not really her results yet. I think probably it's breath of fresh air, somebody new coming in, bit of oomph to the team, but I would have hoped to have had wins against those two teams had the manager not changed. But we'll see how we build up on the rest of the season and how that builds. And we've drawn with Arsenal once this season, which is a fantastic result for us. Can we kind of start those kind of things more regularly, push in those teams? If she can do that in the second half of the season, we'll be over the moon.
So you was pleased that she came in, that you got a new manager, or would you have been okay? Was it a surprise for you that you got new managers?
We heard rumblings. I think we were aware that the club were calling, certainly behind closed doors anyway, the club said the Reading game was a must-win game, which for me was wrong, because given the result last season, that didn't seem fair to me, but that was a must-win game. And then following on from that, the Bristol City game was a must-win game, and we drew that one as well. So the writing was on the wall, I think, from that perspective. As I say, I personally feel it was a little bit early to make that call, given the fixtures that we'd had. But as I say, I was starting to be a little bit nervous about the managers and their decision making, which was a little bit around injuries and things as well, I think. But they didn't seem to have a plan B when we'd done really well for 70 minutes against Arsenal, and then we lost it all. They've always done this, but Ash Neville made a mistake, so they took her off, which in my mind is never the right thing to do. If it's a generally reliable player, they make one mistake, you don't remove them, because that defeats their confidence. But that, I mean, they've been known to do that in the past as well. So there were little things, and they didn't have they don't have a record at that top level. And sometimes, they've been at the club for 10 years. It's a long time. You need something new and some new blood and some new ideas sometimes. And I think the other trouble is that, given that their history and the size of the players we're now attracting, those players don't respect managers unless they've got significant pedigree. And Karen and Juan, as brilliant as they were for the club over many years, don't have that. And you're not going to attract the top players if you're not performing, and you've got managers who the players aren't going, wow.
That's right. Well, it was time for change. I think, it was the same day, I think we both announced, your club and our club, although you got yours straight away. I think we had to wait, 2-3 weeks till we heard about Ollie. Right, Zoe. So, I know we'd sort of touched on him a little bit, but I am quite excited by Ollie. And he's sort of, he's given a bit away, actually, isn't he, by saying he's developed the squad in terms of recruitment and developed the players that are here. So obviously he wants to bring players in. We haven't heard of anything yet, or have you, Zoe?
I haven't heard of anything at this stage. I think it's quite quiet on the transfer front, especially with what's going on in the NWSL at the moment. There's rumours about Abby Dalkemper coming over to Manchester City, and if she does, that's a 2.5-year deal. So I think a lot of clubs are probably waiting to see if that move happens, because I think there might be a couple of players from City available if that were to be the case. But I think, I counted it up the other day. We have 20 players in our squad. And if you factor in COVID isolations and positive COVID tests, and you factor in injuries, I think for most women's teams as well, you're beginning to feel that your squad is very light. So if we can increase that to at least 24 players, I'd be pleased. But, I think Ollie recognises that we've got a very good squad. And for whatever reason, for the last, 1.5 seasons, we haven't quite gelled. And I think that's what his biggest priority is for us, is to get these top players like Kenza Dali, Emily Van Egmond, Svitkova, all playing together, Martha Thomas. And I think once he figures that out, the whole squad will develop as a unit. And I think that will be massive for us. And, I haven't heard anything about, who's coming in. And I think in a way I prefer that, because that very often means that they're playing their cards close to the chest and they're working away on the deal and something will get announced. So I don't see it as a negative. I think the most important thing is that it looks like Mas Pacheco is very, very nearly back, which, we've struggled not having cover for that left back position. And I think almost, I know, Wallen wanted to go last year, but I think letting her go, we never really got enough cover for that position. So I'm going to be interested to see what he does, what team he puts out. I'm going to be excited. I feel like it could almost be like a 0-0 draw, just because it's two new sides. I've listened to what Rhiannon Skinner had to say on the WSL pod that the offside rule do with the Athletic, in saying about them being defensively solid, shoring up that back line. And I was sat listening to it and thinking, that's exactly what Ollie's going to try and do. So it'll be really interesting. So I'm excited. I mean, to many, he'd be a left field choice, but I think sometimes in the WSL, it is time for a change, and that's what Ollie represents.
Yeah, I think so. I just want to give not that Matt would watch this, but I want to wish him best of luck, at least till the end of the season, while he's covering for maternity for Tanya, isn't he, at the Robins at the Bristol City. So, good luck, Max. He's a top bloke, but it was time for change for both of us. So there we go. So good luck, Matt. Yeah, I mean, look, you're talking about how we're going to shape up. I think it's going to be, for neutrals, I think it's going to be a brilliant game, because I don't think anyone really knows what to expect. I mean, how do you think Leanne's going to sort of approach this match, Sian?
Well, it's about building on the last two games from our perspective. With no disrespect to West Ham, they're a side that we want to be beating. We did it twice last season. We didn't at the beginning of this season. We've had a little bit more time with our new manager. We've had time. I mean, the players have been in a lot over Christmas. They had a short break, but they were back by the end of December. Apart from anything else, listening to Rhiannon about mental health of players who maybe are living by themselves or not with many people. So the importance of having contact with the team and things. So hopefully that means they've had a lot of time on the pitch training, getting to know what Rhiannon wants. I think we've been a strong attacking side in terms of options and things for a long time. We've got Kit Graham back in the side now, having been out for a bit of injury. We've got Jess Naz, who hasn't been with us for a season and a half, back playing, and there is a lot to come from those two players, I think. And hopefully, we can start to see that in this second half of the season. We've got experience in the defence now. We know kind of where we're going to be with that. Interesting to see how the defence lines up always, whether Harrop gets the centre back role or the left back role. And which is a bit crazy. Siri Vorm had a fantastic few games this season. Her start to the season was fantastic. Everybody was starting to pay attention to Siri Vorm, and all of a sudden Keris Harrop's playing left back. So be interesting to see what that setup is. We know Ash Neville's going to be at right back. We know that Shalina's going to be in the back four, and then it's where Keris, Siri and Hannah Godfrey play, really. And then going forward, we've struggled this season, but I think we need to start playing with a couple of strikers, which we have been doing more recently. Previously, we were sort of playing one up front with a couple of players behind, and then kind of sort of interchanging those three players, which wasn't working for us. We want to see Rhiannon Dean in the box. Rachel Williams is fit again. Hopefully she'll get some more game time, and start to see some of those crosses from Rosella Ryan, like we saw at the London Stadium against you guys last season. And
you didn't have to bring that up, Sian, did you? Really? Yeah. We're talking about this season. Thank you very much.
Well, it was a beauty of a goal, and we want to see more like that.
It was a cracker. Yeah.
And we haven't seen a lot of, Rosella Ian's been playing up top a lot this season, which has bemused us quite a bit. What she was excellent at was running down the wing and getting in across. And Angela Addison's been playing down the wing, and with the best will in the world, she's got a lot of pace, but she's not got a cross on her really. And she's not got the height to be in the box either, which is the other place they've been playing her. So although she has scored a header. But there's be interesting to see where Rianne's, having had some time to get to know the team a little bit better, to see how she plays it, because for the first half of the season we've been kind of all over the shop in terms of team selection, I think. So we don't really know who's going to be where, and in the same way that you guys are going to learn what your new manager is going to play.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. I'm going to have so much going on. I'm going to have my laptop on. I'm going to be writing everything down. I'm going to be missing the match as well, obviously with all the WhatsApp stuff going on as well. It's going to be a really exciting game actually to find out. I'm going to be analysing and dissecting everything, I think. So, but look, Zoe, I mean, look, say you had all your badges and you was Ollie for the day. What would you do with our squad? What would you put out against Spurs this weekend?
You want me to name the first 11?
Not all the first 11.
Okay.
So we haven't got the time.
I think it's playing Van Egmond as actually as a number 10 behind Martha Thomas, because I think what Martha has shown in the couple of games, especially against Chelsea and Bristol, is that she can hold the ball up and run with it. Yeah. And I think playing Emily in that number 10, I just think would just be phenomenal. We don't generally tend to play with two strikers up front, but I think Van Egmond is your perfect player to put in that number 10 role. And you look at, I hate to use this kind of partnership on, but if you look at how Harry Kane and Son work for the Spurs men's team, that's what I want to take.
Did you really just do that?
I really. Oh. I can't use my other example. Okay. But I think Van Egmond has that quality to be a number 10, and then I'd put Svitkova in the role that Van Egmond has been playing. The worry is the left back. That's I don't think Pacheco is fit enough, so you've got to put Vetterlein over, I think, to be in that left back position and have Grace Fisk and Gilly Flaherty as the defensive partnership. But I think for me, if you play Van Egmond in that number 10 role, I think that could be phenomenal, really. I think it's perfect position for her. And she's been deadly when she's got goals from the box. I mean, it's simple. Like to see a lot of long balls up to Martha, and Martha to give the defence, Spurs' defence, a run for their money, quite frankly.
Well, speaking of people giving the run for the money and stuff, I mean, who would you say is your danger player, the ones that or the person that we need to look out for, Sian?
Oh, it's difficult because we kind of haven't found that this season. I think is the problem. We haven't had a chance to kind of to push that, and our goals are coming from different places. I think Angela Addison is finding her feet in the Super League. She's still got a long way to go, but this season she's improving a lot. She's looking like a team player this season, which she hasn't looked like in the past, and she's got a bit of pace on her. So that she's there. Rihanna Dean, if she gets the chance, we haven't seen the best of her this season. She's always a threat, in and around that box. And as I said before, Kit Graham coming back, she's a goal threat as well. And this season she hasn't been at her best, and then she was injured. So hopefully she's had a good run in training and got some fitness back. And finally, I'll say Jess Naz again, because again, out for a season and a half. But every Spurs player, when they're asked who's the best person on the training field, they talk about Jess Naz and her ability. The kind of the mythologizing of her is fantastic, but she needs to start putting that in on the pitch now, and she's got that chance now. Fans were hugely supportive of her when she got back. It'd be great to see her starting to make an impact.
You look at West Ham, what one would you say would be the most difficult to sort of defend against?
Well, I mean, I think you've just got to look at the goal scoring record of what Van Egmond to say you've got to be worried about her, because she's your top scorer this season, and as you say, she can be really dangerous. I think, that's going to be the most dangerous player. But it's, as we say, I think the other danger is going to be that we don't know what to prepare for. We don't know what team you're going to put out, how you're going to be playing, and so the Spurs players have got to be flexible in their approach to be able to respond to however you come up against us, and that might be the biggest danger.
Yeah, because we're completely unpredictable at the moment, because no one, including the manager, I don't think, know what's going to happen on Sunday. I mean, look, should we go to kind of the scores? Because, I mean, we've both played 9, right? And you've got 9 points and we've got 7. So whoever's going to win is going to be on top, essentially, now, this weekend. So what would you say the score's going to be, Zoe?
2-1 to West Ham, of course.
Sian?
Yeah, I'm going to do the same scoreline, but the other way. I think it's going to be a close game again, and I think when neither side have got a great defensive record, you're not going to look at it from a nothing happening at either end kind of a fixture. But I'd like us to get a few more, and we have done in the games we've won. We've scored 3, but I think it'll be a tough game, and get two sides, like we said at the beginning of the season, who in the last 2 seasons have been right, running right at the same level, really.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go for a draw again, because we had a draw at the beginning of the season, 1-1. Mind you, in all honesty, I did think it was a match that we should have won, to be fair. I did think that we had more opportunities for us to win, to be fair. But there you go. Now, I'm sitting here now and I'm thinking, shall I touch on it? Shall I not? So I'm going to touch on it. The debacle. So, and I'll tell you why, because I just caught up with something Jilly said, and I'm putting it up here so I can read it. And Jilly stated that she really doesn't like the arrogance that the money and the wages have brought into the women's game. Players need to remain humble and remember how quick it can change. Now, that's a massive statement for one of the players to make on that. And I think it's just been an awful time in women's football history for us. I really do. I mean, I know it was Casey Stoney, was it, Zoe, that come out and said it was a poor error in judgment or something like that, right?
We've had Joe Montemiro finally apologise this week. So, you've had 2 clubs apologise for what's gone on.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what's your take on it, Sian?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a difficult one, isn't it, in one sense, because these are young people who are dealing with things that players in the women's game haven't had to deal with this level of kind of attention before, and strictly speaking, they were abiding by the rules, but given the wider sense, I think people like Casey Stoney should have been more savvy and should have realised the issues and not allowed them to go. You can understand the request to go, but given the situation and given how quickly things were changing and are changing, with quarantines coming in and out within days' notice, I just can't understand the sense from the team's perspective of saying, yeah, of course you can go. You might have to quarantine when you get back for 2 weeks because we don't know what's going to happen with the rules changing, but of course you can go. It doesn't make any sense to me when you've got players at all the clubs who can't go home for Christmas because they can't leave the country, or can't go home even within the country because they can't travel within the country. Why then other players think it's fine to go to Dubai? I don't understand it. I think it is difficult to be really harsh with the players given their ages and the changing circumstances, but the managers should have known better. And I think they need to learn quickly that they do have a presence now in the media, and that the decisions they make affect a lot of people.
It was a really poor judgment on everyone's part, really. But I think as well, I mean, I think the FA, they didn't have clear guidelines as well. I mean, for the men's, there is, again. And I think, I'm not blaming the FA, obviously, but just to come out and say, well, it's down to the clubs to actually do something about it. I think if we'd have had clear guidance from the FA as well, things might have been different there, I mean, even contemplating, for instance, the coin toss, right, to finish. I can't even get my words out, Zoe. Take over before I get too angry.
I mean, in one sense, they're trying to come up with a solution to what is quite clearly unfortunately looking like a lot of the leagues underneath the WSL and the Championship are going to have to be voided for the second year in a row. And that then puts pressure on this competition. And, you know, there is, I think, if I'm correct, there is a coin toss possibility for the men's FA Cup if that ever happens, but it's never talked about because most of the clubs can carry on through it. I mean, it caused a lot of uproar, whether you agree with it or not. I don't know how I feel about it, but they're trying to genuinely find a solution in a period where a pandemic is raging. Do you pause the FA Cup for the next 2 seasons? Do you not give clubs the chance to play in it? Do you void these leagues? It's much more than a coin toss to me. It's much more about how do we ensure that the women's football pyramid is in the best health so that if this ever happens again, and touch wood, I don't want it to ever happen again, but say 30 years down the line, is able to kind of be like, well, this is what happened, but we've got this in place. So the problem is the distinction of elite sport. And unfortunately, only the WSL and the Championship have been deemed as elite sport. And actually, if you look at the men's league, you've got Premier League, Championship, League One, and League Two.
Yeah.
So that's 4 leagues, and yet we've only got 2. So
they've also got, sorry Zoe, they've also got like the Northern League and the Southern League as well. They're all classed as elite. So it's not just the 4.
It comes down, and I think it's a coin toss. So you never want to decide anything on a coin toss, really, do you? It's much like watching a walkover in a horse race where one horse, it just ends up lining up and all they've got to do is run around the track. You never want to see that. I'm not saying you want to see the coin toss, but you know, the FA are trying to genuinely find a solution. And at this stage, until all of the women's football pyramid has funding, until girls' academies are elite, then this issue is going to continue cropping up. And I think, you know, the backlog of fixtures now is going to be insane. And I think we need to give serious thought going into next season already, what happens with next season's FA Cup. Like, what do you do? And I think because this is clearly going to be with us for a lot longer than many people have anticipated.
Absolutely. Anyway, am I glad I brought that up now? I'm not too sure. But yes, listen, thanks for Zoe for sort of taking over there, because
I get so too long about it, but
no, I get really frustrated with inconsistency, and I think it's because we can see that we're so close to the women's football now, how much it's evolved, and with the FSA network now that we're all part of that. Sian, yourself, Zoe with West Ham United Women's Supporters Club, and myself with Pride of Irons, and it's all just chipping away and trying to make these differences to make the WSL what it should be, and then to compete with the NWSL, because I want us to be the best league in the world. And until we get the funding, and as you say, Zoe, until we're actually to be able to have elite sports at the 3rd, 4th division, then I don't think it's going to happen. So hopefully soon, though. But yes, listen, Sian, thank you so much. Is there anything you'd like to mention before I digress again?
No, just to say, any Spurs fans out there, don't, the Proud Lillywhites are around. We've got lots of plans coming up. We celebrate our 7th birthday in February, so lots coming up. So keep an eye out for all of that, and lots of things for everybody to be involved with. And thank you for inviting me on and having a good old chat.
That's great, Sian. Thank you, Zoe.
Thank you again for having me as ever, Joe. It's been
Permanent
great.
fixture now.
Yeah, permanent fixture. I mean, people might wonder when I suddenly don't turn up for some reason, but just to say that, you know, if there are any West Ham Women United supporters out there, then the WHU WSC is on social media and everything, and we'd really like to welcome you all to it if you've happened upon this video.
Great stuff. And listen, thanks again. Really looking forward to the match. Thanks awfully for sticking, especially with me babbling on this time. Thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for listening and watching in. Please subscribe so you can hear me babbling on again for the next episode. We'll catch you again soon. All still stay safe even out there. Bye.